Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and messer up of the window. Where is my Roll20 window? How dare it? Hang on one second. There we go. Jeez. Tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting Annihilation, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you're playing characters Mannix, Celeste, Gillian, George, or Theron, this is not meant for you. You've stumbled into the wrong room. Turn around. Go away. But for the rest of you, welcome. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions. I've said that enough times. You'd think I would get it. On YouTube every Friday evening. Catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session recaps at roguewatson.com. If you'd like to support the channel, check out patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to platinum patrons Andrew, Brian, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Crazy Pat, and Nick. And gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy Nima, Marcos David Vicente, Gilberto Sean, aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net for streaming. I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. I still use Firefox for Roll20. I don't know why that decided not to load for a second. Anyway, so at the top, let me start by saying we are doing D&D this week. Yay! I am not going to be the DM, however. We have a guest DM. My wife Heather is going to be DMing us because we have a reduced crew this week. We had one for 2 weeks, so we ended up just not doing one at all last week, and then this week we're going to do kind of a special, not really a one-shot, but definitely a side trek with somebody who's got their own story, because we're in between locations and we're on the ship, so we can kind of in a unique place to be able to do that. And I am going to be playing one of the NPCs that is on the ship. If you are a patron, you can go to patreon.com/roguewatson and vote for what NPC that I am going to play. That poll needs to close basically tonight, because she'll be finishing up her prep work for tomorrow night's session. So make sure you vote in that. Also, make sure you vote tonight for what my next Let's Play game should be, because I'm going to be starting that one tomorrow afternoon, and I need to start prepping for that. Which means I am going to be prepping for next week's session, when we go back to our regularly scheduled programming, which has the players arrive at Shilku Bay and going towards Wormheart Mine. And their ship excursions will finally end, and I want to end their ship excursions with a dragon attack. I had this idea during last week's Crafting Annihilation towards the end. The players arrive at Shilku Bay. It's very cloudy and ashy and dark because there are active volcanoes in the region spewing lava into the bay, so they have to basically hug this west side of the bay, which they can make it all the way up to the north tip right here to basically land as close as they can to Wormheart Mine. But when they do, whenever they get close enough, the dragon Tinder, who lairs in Wormheart Mine, the same dragon who defeated Hugh's expedition force and bit off and ate his arm, and the reason Theron and Hugh and the whole party is going towards the mine, that dragon is going to attack the player's ship. I think the one thing that's kind of bothering me is the fact that, you know, the players have had these quests to get these pirate ships, and they don't actually have the means to maintain or keep the pirate ships. And this is a situation where I think I may have to just broach that fact of, while they're in Jahaka Bay, which I guess I'll have to do that this session, because we'll be going between Jahaka Bay and Shilku Bay with this session this week. Maybe they'll have to just leave one of the ships behind, just like hide it somewhere and anchor it and hope they can get back to it, because I'm basically going to say, like, you don't really have the crew to be able to go across the sea, even next to the coastline like this, with two ships. You basically barely have enough crew to control one ship. I let them hop across the bay, but that's definitely different than going across open sea, so I guess it's not technically open sea, you're hugging the coastline, but still, because I want them to be on one ship. It just makes things a lot easier logistically for the DM, as I have this dragon attack them. My plan is to have this be a kind of abstracted theater of the mind fight, because I really want to make this more cinematic than tactical, mainly because it's exceedingly difficult to, on a tactical grid map, create the effect of a dragon swooping in, breathing fire, and swooping out like a jet making strafing runs. It's going to be really tricky to do that, and it might slow things down. I mean, I still want to put people in initiative and let them do things, but I am very tempted to actually not even use the battle map. What I might do is go ahead and use the actual pirate ship map. So this one, and just maybe not even show the dragon. Just have that be, somewhere else, so that I can run its fire breath and things, but have it be to where it's just constantly swooping down, breathing fire, and swooping out. Because dragons, I believe, have an 80 feet flight distance. Yeah. So they can swoop in and swoop out really effectively and essentially permanently stay out of melee range completely. They'll still be in normal range, and the players do have ballistas that they can use to shoot at the dragon. So I just want to try to create a fun effect. I don't want to go too many rounds, and I want to have the effect of this dragon is doing some damage to the players, but mostly doing damage to the ship. And that is going to be a concern for the players. And at some point, the players will hopefully do enough damage. And this is another part where I want to abstract this, because frankly, I don't even know if I'm going to track hit points on the dragon. I think I'm just going to track hit points like on the notes or something, and just see. And at a certain point, or of how many rounds have passed or something, to let combat end. It's not meant to be a full-on, straight-up fight in any way. So I don't see this dragon landing and fighting. It's not going to do any of that. It's just, it sees this ship approaching. This is its territory. It's going to try to sink the ship. It's not necessarily wanting to make sure every last person is dead on the ship. It figures sinking the ship will be effective enough. But the players are obviously a lot stronger than most ship crews, so they would be able to drive off the dragon, hopefully before it can permanently destroy the ship. My idea is the dragon does enough damage to the ship that it is crippled, and it's just an excuse for the NPCs to basically stay behind. Although they could probably stay behind anyway, but it would be Ortome, Grig, and Roka would all stay behind to repair the ship and basically probably slink the hell out of this bay, leaving the players on the shoreline. Because what I don't want to do is destroy the ship and thus give the players even more NPCs in the form of the former ship folks. That is not my intention here. Or other than I could kill them off, I suppose, and just strand the players in the southern area of the jungle, which wouldn't be the worst thing to do, because again, they've got another ship waiting for them somewhere. It seems a little dark though, given how well Ortome has been for their team and their crew. So it's not my intent, and again, I guess it's just purely up to me in terms of how much damage this dragon actually does. It says on my notes, this is from, I believe, the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. A ship has an armor class of 15 and about 300 hit points with a damage threshold of 15, meaning I believe you have to do more than 15 damage in an attack to actually even do any damage to a ship. Which is why the fire breath definitely would do damage, but I don't think it would be able to sink it. It does an average of 16d6 damage, which if you do that, for 3 rounds... Ooh, that's some dice. That's a great roll. 56. Oof, 68 again. So I am about halfway to destroying the ship after 3 rounds. Now, that's cheating technically, because the odds of a red dragon getting their fire breath every single round are not great. They have to recharge on a 5 or 6, which means they have a 30% chance to be able to do their fire breath every round. It is possible, but I want this dragon to be able to do its fire breath every round. So another reason why I might have to abstract this fight a little bit and kind of cheat the system. What I can say is that I am doing this as a hidden roll, just bullshit the players, because having the dragon just fly around, I mean, maybe if things get really bad for a second, I may have the dragon not swoop down in 1 round and make it so it's like recharging or something. So maybe it takes 2 rounds to actually complete its circle, but I definitely want to have the appeal of this dragon swooping down, breathing its fire breath. I don't know how I'm going to determine where it attacks. Probably if the ballista people are shooting it, and again, those ballista attacks take 3 separate actions to load, aim, and fire. So technically, if they want to fire a ballista in 1 round, it takes 3 per people to man 1 ballista. So if there are a bunch of people, for example, up there, then they will be the targeted of the fire breath. But I'll probably spread it around just to make it funsies. And that the dragon wants to be able to do maximum damage to each section. So I definitely want to play up the fact that the fires are bursting all over the ship. People are screaming. The ship is just going to be in really bad shape. So the idea is the players should successfully drive off the dragon, but the ship will be in really bad shape. That will hopefully just make a cool, dramatic, cinematic moment, and then tie up a lot of their NPCs. They can still take Hugh and Mushari because those two are important for the next areas that they're in. So I expect them to take those NPCs. And it's been a while since the players have been able to take an NPC anywhere. I think, in fact, I can't even remember the last dungeon I let them do that in, now that I think about it, because the Typhoon Palace, they were not allowed to take a NPC. Jahaka Anchorage, they did not take any. Firefinger, Azaka even wanted them to go there, but she wouldn't go up there. And Oralunga, nobody went into that dungeon. I literally don't think I've allowed them to take any NPCs into basically any of the dungeons. Dungrunglung, they stayed behind. Yeah, I'm like literally trying to think about our campaign now. This might be the first case of that, and that's because these NPCs specifically want to go into those dungeons and clear them out, so they need to be there for that. Now the nice thing is, this time around, it's no longer a necessary crutch for the party, because both Hugh and Musharib are not very strong at all compared to the party. Hugh does actually have a lot of hit points, oddly enough. Musharib made him a pacifist, and he's basically like a level 1 druid. He has no offensive spells whatsoever. He's like speak with animals, pass without trace, jump. He's sort of functionally useless as an NPC. Hugh, he has the Berserker, or no, it's Reckless. He can gain advantage on his attacks, but then attacks against him have advantage. He only has the one attack, and it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. And he doesn't have good armor class. He does have a mess of hit points, though, so he can technically tank a little bit better. So he would be able to be there for the party. And for this ship, although I don't think either of them would actually be attacking ranged attacks against the dragon. So I'm hoping this will be an interesting fight. I can actually go ahead and roll for the dragon's hit point, because this isn't a named NPC. This is Tinder, which all dragons are named NPCs, I guess. So I am going to roll for her hit points, and I need to make sure those are the same hit points for when she's in the mine. 179. Alright, that's above average technically, so I'll take 179. And the idea is no matter what she gets reduced to, she'll be at full health for the encounter in Wormheart Mine, so she'll be back there to regenerate. But I think it's just a good chance to show off the dragon and the power level that she's at. It's only a young dragon, but compared to, level 6 PCs, it is a CR 10 enemy. So I think this might be the single strongest foe the players have faced. So I think being able to show her off via this big cinematic battle will be really effective. Obviously hoping that is the case. So that will get them to Shilku Bay. And then I've got to decide if I actually want to prep anything from when they land. And part of the trickiness, and part of why I think I can scale all these combat encounters up, is because the players are in that situation in the overland map where they can long rest. They'll be long rested, fully rested before the encounter, and then after the dragon encounter, they can presumably long rest again, because the dragon will retreat having taken, probably significant damage. The players will basically, wash up on shore. I'm torn between destroying the ship and not. It would be more dramatically cool to destroy the ship, but it would cause more problems in terms of giving the players more NPCs that I actually don't want to give them. So it would make more sense to maybe they just get the ship and they can basically steer it up onto land, and then they have to just spend like a long time repairing it, in which case the PCs will go off on their journey, and then a lot of the NPCs will stay behind. That's, I think, my idea. That's a lot of Mannixes of damage, Slumpy. Yeah, one Fire Breath will end Mannix. That's some nasty-ass damage. I do have to be careful about who I'm shooting it at and where it's going. Um, yeah, Fire Breath is bad, isn't it? 16d6. It's an average of 56 damage. That is pretty atrocious. They do get a save for half, I believe. Where's the where's that dragon? Young red dragon. It's a DC 17 Dex saving throw, taking 56 fire damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. But I'm not having the dragon land to do any of its attacks, so it's just going to be doing the Fire Breath. And that may be, I may be making things too difficult if I let it literally fire breathe every round. Although it is technically possible, it's just not likely that it would technically get its Fire Breath after each round. It's a 30% chance. So it is possible I could use it multiple. It kind of just depends on how the fight is going. It's one of those things that I'll balance with live during the session. Is, you know, if that Fire Breath nukes like half the party, then I might have the dragon spend another round just in the air circling back for another attack, versus if it doesn't do much damage and doesn't seem very impressive, then it will immediately, like, you know, turn around and go down for another big Fire Breath swoop. So I am going to be hiding, obviously, these recharge rolls. Between you and me, I'm not making these recharge rolls in order to basically just make this as fun as an encounter as I can, while still giving the players a chance to drive off the dragon. And it's going to be a Captain Ordomay. There's going to be a little scene where there's a bunch of ash clouds, and Captain Ordomay will suggest one of the players get up to the crow's nest and scout ahead, and that player will be given a chance to roll a perception check to find the dragon before the dragon swoops down. Otherwise, the dragon is going to get an ambush attack, because it's literally going to be swooping out of these like giant smoke clouds. So that'll give the players a heads up, in which case they'll just be able to roll initiative straight up and maybe get a few shots off on the dragon first, which will help them quite a bit. But yeah, that could be very powerful. I don't plan on letting anybody, you know, George wrangle the dragon or anything of that nature, because it will be constantly flying in and out of reach. It will start off, you know, even if the players see it to begin with, it'll be like, you know, 40 feet in the air or something, which a lot of players can still do ranged attacks for. And then it'll fly down, use its Fire Breath, and then fly out another 40 feet. So I think I should be able to basically keep it at 40 feet the whole time without cheating too much. And that should keep it well out of any kind of melee shenanigans that anybody can do. And maybe the players want to get crazy. Maybe somebody wants to pop a balloon and go up there to the dragon. Like, I don't know. That seems really dangerous, but I can certainly work with that. I don't necessarily see the dragon swooping down and picking anybody up and dropping them. That could be a move it could do, but probably only if... Because its main goal is to sink the ship, not necessarily to worry about killing every single person on board, so that would not be its most effective play. If I was running it straight up and I had to recharge its Fire Breath, then it probably would have to resort to those tactics, but because I'm going to be basically bullshitting my way through letting it do its Fire Breath as much as possible, I don't see it necessarily doing that unless the players do something to really piss it off or something. Then it'll swoop down, try to grab somebody, fly up there, you know, bite it, and then throw them on the ground. You know, I mean, that's going to murder somebody if it swoops, because it can do a grapple for any one of its 2 attacks, I would say, with its claws. So it's got 2 chances to grapple somebody, and then it'll fly off with them, and then it can bite somebody and then just drop them as a free action, which would be another 40 feet down into water. That would be fucking insane. Which I might do that. We'll see how it goes, but I want to keep things. I don't think I want to put the dragon on that battle map. I think I want to keep it like as this flying, just frightening ass enemy. So hopefully we can make that fun. But that is designed to not be a straight up fight. That will just last a certain amount of rounds until I feel like either the players have done enough damage or the dragon has done enough damage, essentially, and then things will become a stalemate as the dragon retreats, and the players will have to recollect themselves. But they'll be given a chance to basically long rest again, because Gillian's got her hut. They can rest right there on the beach, and then they can travel up to Wormheart Mine. And here I have to decide if I want to do any encounters, because at most, assuming they can land like in this hex, that is a 2-day. It's actually hard for me to tell. There's the hexes. If they land here, it is... you could argue maybe even 3 days. No, it'd be 2 days. It's a 2-day travel if they land here at Shilku Bay. So, one thing is they're going to have the albino dwarf with them and the regular dwarf. Sorry, albino dwarf. Regular dwarf, that's rude. Hugh and Musharib. And Musharib's whole thing is to get to Hrakamar. There's an encounter outside of the forge where they're supposed to meet a bunch of other albino dwarves that tell them the story of, hey, the fire newts took over our forge. We need you to go in there and beat them up and get our home back. But I already have Musharib with the party who can do that. So, and the fact that the players are landing here, and most likely, because if you look at the map, they will get to Hrakamar by going through the mine first. So they will probably do this entire dungeon first. And then when they get to the bottom, this section goes directly to Hrakamar. It says even the tunnel winds southward 40 miles. The tunnel is passable and the rail cart tracks are intact for the full length, but encounters with carrion crawlers and giant spiders are guaranteed. And 40 miles, I don't know how many... I mean, that would take days of travel. Now, of course, the players do have access to the hut, so they could still get long rests, unfortunately. But I could throw some encounters at them, some tunnel encounters just for funsies. The long rest thing really is irksome. Let's see, is that the same thing it says on Wormheart Mine? Because they can just go into that hut and just automatically be safe, right? That's the whole idea. Alright, Wormheart Mine number 12. Yeah, it just says elevated cart track enters the tunnel in north wall and continues northward for 40 miles to the fire newt infested smelter and forge of Hrakamar. It is passable and the tracks are intact for the full length, but encounters with kobolds and other monsters are likely. I just come up with whatever monsters I want in between. Probably not kobolds. I would think that at some point the fire newts and the kobolds have a pretty strict border wall in place. So it would just be a bunch of tunnel monsters like carrion crawlers and those kind of things. Or I could put whatever interesting tunnel monsters I want in there. But it's interesting that the players would continue along this track. I don't have a map for that, though. I'd have to throw together a map that's just a generic cave with a track going along the middle. I could even throw like a mini dungeon in there if I wanted to, I suppose. Just like some offshoots. Yeah, for 40 miles, that would give the players a chance to long rest in between dungeons. Which, maybe that's good. I don't see either of these dungeons being particularly... None of them, I don't think, are designed for level 6 players, so I think I'm going to have to scale them up. But for prepping, I think I want to do the albino dwarf encounter outside of Wormheart Mine, and it'll be in a case where, you know, maybe a bunch of, like, I don't know, sleep darts come out, entangling roots come up. Like, the albino dwarves are pacifists, but that doesn't mean they don't have means to protect themselves. So they see these guys marching over, and maybe they do that, and then that's a chance for Musharib to actually say, hey, no, you know, this group is here to help us, and they've agreed to help us take back Hrakamar. Or I do that encounter in the tunnel. How the dwarves managed to eke out an existence in the tunnel between. Because why would they be outside Wormheart Mine? I think they're supposed to be... Let's see, what does Hrakamar say? I need to make sure I prep this because I need to know what all they're going to encounter outside of the mine. I think I do also want to have the Commodon encounter. So George still needs to take out a Commodon and a giant snake. I presumed at this point he would have already taken out a giant snake. It hasn't happened yet. So I think I may have to let him find just like a snake skin in a crate or something, because at this point I don't really have a good encounter with a snake, other than maybe just in Omu, but I kind of want to... because my idea for George's personal quest, his is just to kill monsters and collect their shit, is once he completes it, he then gets the final stage of his quest, which is to take out the King of Feathers in Omu, which is this big, weird, teleporting Tyrannosaurus Rex. But I need him to get that quest before they go to Omu. And I don't have a giant snake encounter planned between here and there, but I can do a Commodon encounter. So I think I'm just going to let him find like a giant snake skin, like, I don't know, in a crate somewhere in Wormheart Mine, just for the hell of it. Just handwave that one away, and then George will get a special item from that I still have to come up with. Let's see. So it's Hrakamar. If characters travel within 10 miles of the forge, 4 albino dwarf warriors spot and approach them. Their spokesperson is blunt-talking Scythe Vinecutter. She lays out the problem. Fire newts have taken over the ancestral forge and proposes the solution: kill them. As a reward, each character will be allowed to take 20 1-pound ingots of refined adamantine from the forge. The dwarves will lead them to the location of a crashed flying boat from some far-off land. So obviously they've already been there. The dwarves offer to stand guard outside while the characters rid Hrakamar of fire newts. If the characters seem underpowered or in need of a guide, Scythe offers to accompany them. She remembers the layout of the forge, but doesn't know how many fire newts are inside or where they might be hiding. The forge was opened by the dwarves. It was linked by trade routes to Shilku Bay and other points on the peninsula. Although those roads have endured a century of neglect in the vicinity of the forge, they were of dwarven construction, and not even a century of disrepair can erase a dwarven road. The roads are buried under ash in the Valley of Lost Honor, but where the mountains rise above the ash plain, the road can be spotted easily and followed to the forge entrance. A character who makes successful DC 13 wisdom check while examining the road sees scorch marks indicative of fire newts or other flame creatures using it. Well, what I see happening is they enter Wormheart Mine, they complete that dungeon, they then travel the 40 miles via tunnel underneath that connects these two regions to end up in Hrakamar, and then they can exit Hrakamar and end up in this Valley of Lost Honor, where they can then travel across this entire valley towards Omu, because I know the location of Omu, so once they pop into Hrakamar, they'll probably just say, well, now we can just cross over here. And the Valley of Lost Honor gives me a chance to do basically any last-minute encounters in Schultz that I want to employ, which will include Artis Simber, or Kimber, I forget how to pronounce his name. I think it's Kimber. Have him show up, have Zendala show up, basically resolve Mannix's personal quest at some point in there. Maybe whatever other wasteland encounters I want to do. And then the players can arrive in Omu. Now they will be level 6 for Wormheart Mine and Hrakamar. And then they will reach 7, I believe. Let's see where my notes. I think they reach 7 upon getting into Omu. Which, oddly enough, means they may not be at level 6 as long as they were like any of the low levels. Yeah, level 7. So, that Shilku Bay encounter, traveling to Wormheart Mine, the Wormheart Mine dungeon, and Hrakamar, by the end of all of that, they will make level 7. Or I could wait and have them hit level 7 when they actually reach Omu. I could keep them level 6 for the Valley of Lost Honor. I may do that. That way they're level 6 for a little longer. And then it would be at 7 for all of Omu, which that'll be a lot of prep work, because I haven't looked much at Omu, and that requires a lot of work. It's a really neat area full of its own like offshoot dungeons and stuff, as well as the main dungeon. But at that point, we start finally entering the... Actually, I probably wouldn't even count it as entering the end game until they entered the Tomb of Annihilation itself. Getting ahead of myself here. Alright, so... do I want them to encounter the albino dwarves outside of Wormheart Mine, so that the dwarves can tell them about Hrakamar. Do I even need to do that because I've got Musharib with them? You know what? Doesn't Hrakamar have like a bunch of enslaved albino dwarves? Because that would actually be more interesting. Let's look at that one. I think the fire newt's literally... Ooh, I'm very zoomed in. I think they keep a bunch of like albino dwarves as slaves in here. Oh, there's a couple right here. Let's see, number 9. Let's see. Fire newts are notorious torturers and eaters of humanoid flesh. Ooh. Prisoners are tied up, gagged, and tossed here until the fire newts decide how to inflict the most intense and longest-lasting pain on them. Oh my gosh. Most prisoners are dead within a 10-day, but they wish for the end much sooner. Good lord. Dwarves are the exception. There's much about the workings of Hrakamar the fire newts still don't understand. Captured dwarves are tortured for hints about how the foundry's tools and machines work. 2 are tied, gagged, and blindfolded here when the characters arrive. Their names are Laz Drumthunder and Malker Stonegrist. Those are great names. They're starving, dehydrated, and suffering from 5 levels of exhaustion. Laz will recover normally with time and care, magical healing. Malker has gone mad. He shudders uncontrollably and screams non-stop if his gag is removed. Oh no. Interesting, so that's the first thing they find. So that might actually work better, especially because this is literally the entrance the players will take. I guess they can either take this fork to the right or the left. But they can actually meet captured albino dwarf warriors, which then Musharib will be able to help perform any social encounters with them, and they'll be able to learn some information. So maybe I can include even a few more dwarves there. Or just the fact that one of them will be able to tell them, like, hey, our people are out in the Valley of Lost Honor somewhere. So I don't think I need to do the albino dwarf encounter outside of the mine then. This is a really cool looking dungeon, by the way. Freaking just giant lava right in the middle. It's like a Mario Brothers level. Do 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 do. Giant cranes and tracks everywhere. Ah, very cool. Fire newts are not very strong, unfortunately, but there's a lot of them. Also, a lot of these giant striders. Look at that. There's just a ton of them, though. I may replace, kind of like the Wormheart Mine, I may scale some of them up just to make it a little bit more interesting. This is just more about hordes and hordes of these creatures. Holy crap. Alright, Wormheart Mine first. So, we'll do the dragon encounter in Shilku Bay. They'll get a chance to rest. I can't really stop them there. Then, as they travel north, I think the only encounter I'll do is the Commodon encounter, which is they just get ambushed by a bunch of Commodon and get a chance. George will get a chance. Oh, look at this. Here's an encounter I never used, the Frost Giants. George will get a chance to get the Commodon item he needs. That's sad. I never did use the Frost Giants. Never really came up, I guess. That was Gillian's huts. How does this map actually look on dynamic lighting? Ooh, I could put him in here. Or put them here, maybe in this area. They're going north to south. Yeah, I think I like this better. By the way, my macro doesn't work anymore, I noticed, for long resting. I'm not sure what happened. If I click the button, nothing seems to happen. Put all of you here. It says long resting, but it doesn't actually perform the long rest, so I'm not sure if there was an update from Roll20 or something that happened, but And it's a shame because we were using that quite a bit to roll to heal everybody. They will have Hugh and Musharib with them. And then the idea here is they are ambushed by a bunch of Kamadan, which are like leopards with Medusa snakes coming out of them, which is pretty cool. There's really, you know, at this point, there's not a whole lot of native Chultan creatures that I haven't thrown at the players that are interesting and cool. This is probably one of the few last ones, and it's one of the stronger ones, so I think it works out great that the players are higher level, and it's one of the few that I could really challenge the players with. Now, the encounter suggests 1 or 2, because obviously the players are designed to be between level 1 and 5, I believe, for Chult. So given that my party is fully rested, and they have 2 NPCs with them, I think I'm going to throw 4 of them at the players here, just to make things a little interesting. And they are pretty neat. They've got a multi-attack. They can use an attack with either its bite or claw, and then with its snakes. And its snakes do an average of 6 piercing damage plus 66 poison damage. Oh, they do get a saving throw for half damage, a con save. And they can do a sleep breath. In a 30-foot cone, they can just literally knock everybody unconscious with a DC 12 con saving throw. Which, if I throw 4 of them at the players, each one has a chance to do that at some point. So it works out pretty well if, like, you know, maybe 2 of them try to do it in the first round and the other 2 do it in the second round. And it really forces the players to use their actions to, like, wake each other up, basically. They do have a pounce attack. They'll move at least 20 feet. And this will definitely be an ambush situation. They have a stealth plus 7. So that means I always take it as a 10 plus 7 is they're basically the stealth check they're making. So they're going to do a 17. So that would require players to make to basically have passive perception of 17 or higher, which I don't think anybody has that. I think Manix, for all his perception, has a 16 passive perception. Let's see. No, he has an 18. I'm wrong. Manix, you son of a bitch. Oh, he's got an 18, and he hasn't even, I don't think he's leveled up to 6 yet either. There's still 5. How did you get an 18 passive perception? Fuck. That's impressive. Alright, so Manix will see them coming. I don't know who else would have. Maybe Theron has that much wisdom? Nope, he's a 14. I don't think anybody else comes close to perception. 15. George's actually better. I think Gillian and Celeste both have really bad passives. Yeah, 11 and 11. Okay. So Manix is the only one that's not surprised. Will not. So it'll be the surprise round. Will be the Commandants plus Manix. He'll get a chance. Oops, that's the wrong one. Not a red dragon here. And I feel like I can throw a bunch of these at them because, again, the players are going to be long rested, and I don't see any way to stop them from being able to long rest after this fight either. So it'd just be a. This is basically just me trying to, you know, take somebody down and give them a lasting injury. What I do need to do is try to give the players more opportunities to heal their lingering injuries because they have no chance to go to a town to do that. So I do need to be aware of giving people medicine kits is the easiest thing because it still requires, I believe, a DC 20 medicine check. But it uses the medicine kit, the healer's kit, I think is what I'm trying to say. So I could give them more healer's kits as rewards, and then at some point maybe a scroll of greater restoration would really, really help the players as well. So right now this would be, I might even do the like pincer attack here and really freak the players out. And just have these two essentially running up and pouncing the 2 lead characters, and then the next round 2 more appear. This could be a really fucking terrifying fight with 4 CR4s. But even still, I mean, the players will be level 6. Like I said, long rested, and they do have some NPC allies, although Musharib will be useless here. Let's roll for some hit points. But I think this is the only random encounter I'm actually going to throw at them between here and the Wormheart Mine. 9d10 plus 18. And a very, very light audience for Crafting Annihilation this week. This is my comeuppance for skipping last week entirely, I think, for our D&D session. 63, below average. 75, well above average. 75 again. 60, alright. I got all averages out. 3. Now the interesting thing here is these would probably not fight to the death if they can help it, so they would actually probably retreat, which would give the players a bit of a edge there. They're just trying to ambush and get an easy meal here, but once the players really start fighting back, and maybe once they even kill one or two of them, the others will probably just disengage and flee back into the jungle. They're not just mindless monsters, although they're more than beasts. They are monstrosities, which I'm sure Theron will try to like charm them. But similar to the gorillans, like they're not really natural beasts. So that will be that fight. Then they'll approach Wormheart Mine. So it's very possible, in fact, it's likely that we actually won't reach Wormheart Mine on next week's session, because we've got the big dragon fight on the ship, and that could last however long I want it to last. And then we've got this encounter with the Commodon, which could certainly last for a while. So it's there's a pretty good chance we will not yet make it to the mine, which is good because then I'll have another week to prep for Wormheart Mine, which here I'm probably going to let... So George will get his Commodon gland, whatever he needs for his quest from those creatures, and then I think just up here he'll be able to find like a preserved snake skin or something. I don't really see the need to throw a giant snake at him at some point, because I don't... Unfortunately, I think I meant for him to fight like one in Orlunga or somewhere where he was able to get a snake skin and just never was able to acquire one. And obviously he'd be able to get one later on, but I want him to get that quest to kill the King of Feathers before reaching Omu. So there's a neat thing where the characters, even as they complete their personal quests, they'll be, either in that area or still needing to go to that area. And I'll have to come up with a reward for him for getting the second part of his quest done, which I think my original idea was to give him a shield, because he got a rainbow shell from a flail snail and then a sleep gland and like all this weird shit he can combine. But his fighting style is he dual wields 2 short swords. So... And one of them was the Vine Whip sword that he loves, that is gotten a lot of really fun use out of, which is cool. I think I'm just going to give him another short sword as a reward then. Let him just have 2 awesome, dual-wielding 2 cool swords, which I think will be a cool reward for him. And then I haven't decided what he'll probably get 1 more upon defeating the King of Feathers. I think as written you get like the Helm of Telepathy or something, which I guess I could still give him. Not terribly thematic. I haven't quite decided what kind of magic sword I want to give him. The other one came so quickly in terms of this works great with the vine shit he took out, and it's got a cool ability and all that. This one would probably be more defensive in nature, so something to do with like absorbing spells. I'm literally picturing like Final Fantasy VI, Celeste like holding up her sword, that runic ability, which absorbs the spells and heals. So maybe something like that, so I could still keep it a weapon. It'd still be a magical weapon, maybe a +1. But also have the ability to either absorb or deflect or redirect spells, because that's what the flail snail was all about doing. So I'm leaning towards do something like that. I would just have to look up kind of the proper way to balance that and see if that's maybe like a once per day thing or how I want to do that exactly. So yeah, he will get that from, which that would be a little anticlimactic to be able to find it here. Rather than actually killing the snake, but I don't have a good I don't have a good way of throwing a snake at them. I mean, I could have another random encounter where they just find to kill a giant snake, but it just feels like, I don't know, I just feel like it's not really worth doing here. The Commandant should have been the culmination of the second part. I screwed up and didn't give him a snake. Because in the entrance, there's an office. Building's contents have all rotted. There's no information and nothing of use here. It's a building with nothing of use. And the supply shed, let's see, dozens of crates and barrels are stacked inside. Some of them are toppled over by tree roots growing beneath them. Stored food and water is inedible, but the other supplies are mostly still usable, even if they won't be especially useful in adventures. They consist of tools for mining, stoneworking, and ironworking, shovels, lanterns, candles, miners' helmets, heavy gloves, spare wheels, axles and brakes for ore carts, grease, thick rope, tar, brushes, brooms, and so forth. So for some reason he can probably find a crate inside that's got a nice preserved snake skin in there. I think that's my plan. And then he'll be able to get his reward and essentially complete the second part of his personal quest, and then open up the final leg of his personal quest, which will be to defeat the King of Feathers in Omu. And then I need to prep Wormheart Mine, which is really cool. Has a really neat mine cart the players can take and just roll their asses all the way down in. I don't know how many people can actually fit in a mine cart. It doesn't seem like you could fit more than 1 or 2 people, though. See if it mentions that. Cindelor has amassed a falling of kobolds. Dwarves left 3 ore carts in the mine, all in working order or repairable. Are those 3 scattered around? There's one at the entrance here. There's one here. Maybe there's one further down. Yeah, there's the other one right there. Okay, so there's the 3. Track circling the main track is quite steep, not as steep as stairs, but steeper than most ramps. The ore carts are built so the downhill end, the front, is higher than the uphill end. It's level on the sloping track, they look odd on level ground. Carts can be shut in on the side passages if the carts are switched. Some carts' brakes are in better condition with others. I think I read this before. Everyone in the cart when it takes... Let's see, how many people can fit in the cart? It doesn't actually say. Just judging by the map, it doesn't look like you can fit more than 2 people, because it looks like it is barely... the cart takes up like 5 feet by itself. So I would argue that you probably couldn't fit more than 2 people in a cart. But God, I hope somebody just goes down that cart, because that seems hysterical. Just go down, 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 while everybody else tries to deal with like the rest of the encounters. Kobolds trying to fling shit at you. I'll probably scale up some of these guys. Yeah, this will be a really fun one to prep, because there's just all kinds of shit that can go wrong. This is a dungeon that depends on really how the players approach it. They can either go straight to the bottom immediately and just take all these attacks, or they can fight their way down normally and not jack with the minecart at all. Go across and just fight a bunch of kobolds. But the goal will be to go downstairs and fight the dragon, and that will be actually a straight up fight, which I don't think the ceiling is high enough. Depending on how much noise the players make, they might be able to catch her while she's sleeping, but most likely not. I'll have to see about that. But I've got more weeks to prep for Wormheart Mine. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, we are doing D&D this week. I am not going to be the DM, so we're actually not doing anything I've talked about this week. Instead, my wife will be DMing a special side trek, because we still have players out. 'Tis the season for vacations, summer vacations. And then next week should be a normal schedule, so I'll be back for Crafting Annihilation on Thursday. Probably at that point I'll be prepping more Wormheart Mine, because I'll have caught up on all the things that I prepped today, which was the dragon fight and the Commandants and all that. Getting to Wormheart Mine. And then we'll be back to normal at that point. So thank you for joining me for Crafting Annihilation. And I'll see everybody tomorrow night for D&D. Please vote, Patreons, vote in the poll for which character I play, as well as which game I start playing on my next Let's Play tomorrow afternoon. See you then.